Good evening. Welcome. This is the February 28th, 2018 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Newcastle.
First on the agenda is Whippoorwill Club, Inc., looking for an extension.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is James Ryan, principal with JMC. We're the planners and engineers for the Whippoorwill Club, Inc. As your board might recall, in March, it was March 29th last year, the board granted certain approvals and amendment to our special use permit, and there was a variance for the paddleball court. The terms of it indicate that we have to be completed within 1 year, and as the board might realize that the club tends to shut down at certain times, and then we're rushing to try to get the work done. But we've not completed all the work, so we're respectfully requesting 1 year extension on this, so we anticipate completing everything by that time. So we're well underway. The clubhouse work has been really the focus, and that clubhouse work is well underway and should be completed very soon. But we'd need another year so that we can complete the rest of the work.
A year is a long time.
It is, but again, our window is fairly narrow. They try not to do too much work while the club is most active. So, work on the grounds and so on tends to kind of slow down while there's a lot of other activities and a lot of people on the property. So
When did the original term conclude?
March 19th it started.
Right.
March 29th was the approval date. And so we're fast approaching that 1 year time frame. So
wouldn't it be true that you would probably finish before next winter?
yeah, by the end of the winter, yeah, probably around this time next year, we should be 100% complete. That's what we anticipate.
I'm sorry, I was asking a different question.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't anticipate that you would be finished with the work before the onset of winter?
No, because this is really the paddleball court work has yet to be done. There's certain other work around the tennis area that was granted. These were all kind of minor things that were scattered around the property. So again, the focus has been on the clubhouse work, and that will be complete probably within the next 30 days or so. But the rest of the work has not yet been completed, so we're looking for that extension so we can do that.
So you're saying when the weather gets better, the work gets less?
It's actually true.
Okay.
So that's what we're
we
just
know where
hoping.
we're coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rich, do you have any perspective on this?
We have no problem. It is basically 3 separate permits, so they are close to completion with the clubhouse. I think the swimming pool,
Right.
waiting pool is done. So this is really the 3rd permit.
I'll make a motion that we extend the term for the completion of this work by 1 year.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Cheville?
Good evening, Michael Surignano, attorney for the applicant, my client, and Patrick Crote. We have responded to your Director of Planning's memo and your town engineer's memo. I think there's a few minor items that Patrick can address tonight or very shortly. And then we'd like to ask you to refer us out so we can move forward.
There were a few things from Director of
Can you
Planning.
speak into the microphone, please?
There were a few items from
I'm
the
sorry.
Director,
Could I ask that you introduce yourself
Patrick
first,
Croke,
please? Thank you.
architect on the project. There were a few items the Director of Planning asked for clarification on the drawings. There were some items on development coverage, some pluses and minuses which have been adjusted. Those are on the tables on drawing A1, have been adjusted. It puts our development coverage under the maximum that's allowed. There was a question on parking. We've shown turning radiuses for the parking on the property in the existing driveway with no expansion. That's been reviewed by the director and by the town engineer. Tax map identification has been added to the drawings, and there was a note about additional parking behind the garage, which has been removed. In addition, the town engineer has asked for a couple of clarifications on the sightline distances. We've shown the complete distances on the site plan now, including a couple of areas of vegetation that needs to be maintained and removed to keep those distances open. Parking spaces, there was a minor adjustment on one parking space, which has been shown, and again, he reviewed the parking on the existing driveway and has no objection to that.
Anything outstanding?
No.
I didn't mean that in a
No, there
the
are,
way you may have taken it, but
no, the engineer has asked for additional information on the septic system design and on the water service coming in for this new use. Both have been preliminarily reviewed and will be completed once the project's been approved by the boards.
okay. Sabrina, is there anything you wanted to add?
It appears as if the applicant has addressed all of the comments. We would just need a revised submission in our office to move forward per the direction of the board.
We have 3 copies we can submit tonight, and if you need additional, we can get them in tomorrow.
Okay. We will need additional for the board.
So this evening, we're here to refer this to the planning board and the
Yeah.
ARB.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. If the board feels that the plan is appropriate at this point for referral, I think based upon the recommendations of the planning director and the applicant has provided the additional information, you can make that referral subject to, that plan being, has it been reviewed yet, Sabrina? or-
No, just what has been presented tonight and then submitted tonight.
So we would need to have the town engineer and town planning director just to review and make sure everything's been presented.
Correct.
Or been placed on the plan. So the referral could be subject to that approval by the planning department and the town engineer.
Any comments by any members of the board? No. I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Sorry.
No, I wouldn't, I would leave the public hearing open until the referral comes back from the planning board, and then you can have, and you should, I don't know if there's anybody else here tonight that wants to speak to
Is
this
anyone
application.
in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? No.
So you could you can refer it to the ARB and the planning board, and I would adjourn the public hearing to the next meeting. And then if it's not back from the planning board by the next meeting, we'll do another adjournment at that time.
Okay. I make a motion that we refer the Cheville application to the planning board and ARB, subject to review by this board, the town's engineer and planning director, and that we adjourn the public hearing until next month.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Oh, 35 Court Mill LLC.
Let's go, you're going to miss your turn.
Sorry, we're outside talking, lost track of time. Good evening, I'm Michael Berto, the architect for the applicant. We're back here today is because I guess there was the side yard variance wasn't published. So if we were here last time, we were discussing about
Sorry, side yard or front yard?
well, both.
Okay.
The front yard we talked about last time we were here, which is an 18-foot variance that we're looking for a front porch. And we also need a side yard, which the existing house is less than the 35 feet existing. And the addition that we're adding on the side and the back of it is just coming off parallel, as you can see on the site plan, it's coming off parallel with the existing house. So it's, believe that we're looking for a 7 or an 8-inch variance for that side.
Okay.
But the existing house is already
You're not
non-conforming.
intruding further into the setback, right?
No, we're lined up with the existing side of the house. So we're just continuing that line straight back.
Okay. And the work as it relates to the front yard variance relates to,
Yeah, that is, what we're doing is we're trying to clean up a little bit of the front porch. Yeah, right now there's 2 doors going in and a very confusing entrance. You actually walk out the door, you go to the right, and then you have to turn around and go to the left where the driveway is. So what we're doing is we're redoing the entrance to create a much nicer facade. So what we're doing is we're trying to make a little bit nicer facade by adding, let me get away from the mic here, by adding this front porch. And we're straightening out the confusing front entrance we're coming out to a covered front porch, then we're going out to another landing, then we're turning down and going towards the driveway,
right?
just to kind of make it so it's a little, and trying to give the house a little bit better curb appeal. 'Cause, right now the house is a little, it's not that appealing.
Is that the actual car that sits
Yeah.
in that? I see.
Yep, that's
Okay.
going to be it.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? Please come forward. If you could state your name and address for us, please.
Good evening. My name is Elliot Wucher, and I reside at 24 Peck Road. I'm the owner of that premises, which is it adjoins the applicant's premises. What brings you here was the new notice indicates that they're seeking a side yard variance. And did I hear correctly, the architect, that they're talking about inches?
Less than a foot, yes. Less than a foot,
Less than a
yes.
foot.
Yes.
Well, then I've come here with the pleasure of hearing the meeting tonight, and I really have no comments.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? No? Any comments by the board? Questions? I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion
Yeah, me
for the application for 35 Court Mill LLC. For a 1-foot side yard variance, go, and an 8-foot front yard variance.
18.
18 foot.
18.
They would not, granting these variances would not create an undesirable change or character in the neighborhood. The benefits sought cannot be achieved by any of the feasible methods. I do not believe these variances are substantial, particularly the side yard. The variances will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environment of the neighborhood. And the variances, the creation of these conditions was self-created, however, not substantial. Based upon that, I move that we grant the 2 variances.
I'll second. You want to put a time on it, Howard?
Yes, 6 months to start, 1 year to finish.
No problem. We actually have the construction drawings in at the building department, and I believe we're just waiting on the variance for the variance.
Any surveys or anything?
Yeah, foundation survey for the front yard at least, minimum,
Foundation surveys.
and a final survey.
Okay.
I'll second it again.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Have your variance.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Trustees Presbyterian Society.
Thank you very much.
That is nice, right?
Very nice.
I don't know if you want to, you
pretty
can
much.
take the microphone if
fine.
you want to stand at the computer
Gotta
or
wake it up. Did you wake it up?
whatever,
Yeah, I don't know if you ever been to
however
the
you're
church.
comfortable.
It's a really pretty, it's next to the other side.
I can get that picture.
Okay, no, should I pass it over?
Yeah. So this is in the back.
Oh, I didn't know the back is so nice.
Microphone straight up so I couldn't hear you.
Oh.
I could hear you fine. And I was like,
Oh.
But I was like, I don't know if they did on the.
Oh, okay.
I'm usually guilty of that.
It's already in place?
I don't know, is it already? No.
All those
Double
people
click on
doing
that.
Yeah, really. Enjoying the property already.
I know with the animation and stuff. There was one online. I had people call me going, when did they build this? And it was a presentation of somebody trying to tell it. But it was there, it was not there yet. And people really thought it was real.
Hello, I'm the architect Peter Gato. I'm here with the client, Pastor Dale and Rob Marlowe, and our contractor for any questions. So we're here today to talk about a little bit of basically a rear wall patio improvement. There's a failing retaining wall in the back of the church right now, which precipitated the project. It's been failing for a while. There's been reports done for years, apparently. Lots of water coming through, and the way the church is situated, the retaining wall is holding back some earth and such in the back of the church, so all the rain, snow rushes back towards the church every time. Actually, right about now, springtime and different occasions. So with crumbling and failing wall, we looked at it sort of comprehensively, not just rebuild what was there, but sort of improve upon the site. And it is a fairly large site, and we're talking about a tiny, tiny portion of the back, which I'll kind of run through for you now. So the existing site overview, the project is in the back. We're looking at the back view of the church right now. So towards the front bottom right of the building is where their site is, that tiny little hill you can't see next to the blue dot. And here's the proposed site plan here. That's the little back corner. I'll show a larger photo of this after in a second. But the church is in the central white box and surrounded by parking at a lower level. The top of the screen is upper level parking. And this is the failing wall right now. You see it's a home wall. It's been there for a long time, and it bends to the left. And so you're looking at the side of the church and looking up towards the upper parking right now. And this is the existing patio and retaining wall setup, which is not much of a patio. It's more of a walkway. And the retaining wall kind of connects to that. So all the water, all the damage is sort of flowing down into the door, which is the sanctuary space behind there, which also serves as the local voting venue. There's another shot of the patio looking towards the parking lot. And this view from the parking lot, and that little cutout you see in the center is the recessed area there, and the walls just to the left, on the left side of the screen. This is a view from looking down. A view from the lower parking lot. To the right you see, so you can really, lots of trees, lots of cover. And then this connects the upper parking lot now, and the water actually is part of the problem with the failing wall to our left. The water actually runs down this, which makes it hard for people to park up there to get into the church, and different night functions as well. And this is a view looking towards where the arrow might be, and you can see the air conditioner unit on the left side. So there's a couple of problematic things that are all in the way. And the outdoor connection. And this is a view from the upper parking. So behind the guardrails, the area we're talking about is marching down a whole floor, essentially to the lower level of the church. These are views from the neighbors' houses of the same area. So you can't really see anything, which is intentional. And here you can't really see anything from this house. And this neighbor's house, this is the view they would have, which is straight through those bushes there.
I think we've got that. Maybe you want to explain the work that you...
Sure. I'll cut right to it. So essentially oh, you thought I was serious with the 2-hour presentation? Oh, come on. This is the demolition we're talking about now. Essentially, the patio is the lower section there, and the retaining wall is above that, a dashed line. And we're proposing an extension of the patio out of the building to create more of a contemplative sitting, talking area. At the same time, having the idea where the new retaining wall holds back the earth and has a grassy, flowered area up top, and still retain the parking that we need to. This is a profile section. So the building is on your right, the vertical line, sort of gentle setup. And so it's designed instead of a straight wall, straight up down, we sort of gradually build up towards the height of the upper parking. And this would be then sort of idea here. So some sitting, talking, having a little more space to relax, and then still having the retaining wall, using the natural rockscape, using natural blend, landscaping on the top, landscaping on the side, and remove for the sake of the image, and matching materials and natural materials to the rest of the site.
Why is it that water will not cascade down in a similar way to what it does today?
Well, there's the way the wall is constructed, there's fabric retention behind it, so technically speaking, so all the drainage kind of collects on the top there, and it's retained in there with proper situation of gravel, and as if you would do a footing for a house or a building. So whole thing's properly drained, connecting to the existing drains that are in the patio right now. So we're just collecting different points, making sure the swales are correct, making sure the technical fabric is holding back the earth and keeping it clean and clear the entire time, and properly disposing of it to where it should be. This is an overview of what it look like. And then that's really it.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? No? Any comments by the board? Questions?
We seem to have a lot of requirements from our engineering.
Are you familiar with this application, Sabrina?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I am.
Have any or all of these requirements been met with regard to
No,
soil tests and?
the engineer's memo went out to the applicant. I'm assuming that they need to address the engineer's concerns, make sure the information is provided so that he can complete his review. Most of his comments are related to stormwater requirements and to erosion and sediment control requirements that were missing from the application.
Go ahead.
We did address several of these over the past 3 months. So the comments came back, we addressed them, comments came back, we addressed them. Several ideas were asked to be put on the drawings directly, which we did. So many comments, so almost 99% of them were addressed. We received a memo 2 days ago, and the question was actually the only thing left over is, I think, a fee. Discussion of escrow accounts, sort of some money things over there. The technical item she's referring to is stormwater idea, which is really applicable for sites or work disturbed over an acre. We're only disturbing 3,300 square feet. So that's something we can talk about as well. And everything else we included in terms of directly answered all the comments since December.
Some secret.
So from a seeker perspective, it's a type 2 action because the area of disturbance is less than 4,000 square feet. The town engineer, I would suggest that you make an appointment to meet with him to discuss his comments, to make sure there's a clear understanding of what information is missing, if any, from this application today. And then he can issue a memo to the board letting them know that everything has been addressed.
We refer this in the meantime?
It needs a referral to the ARB and to the
Oh, to
planning
the
board
planning
because
board as
it's a
well?
special, it's amendment to a special use
Correct.
permit as well.
Correct, and I also had requested most of they're zoning compliant in almost every area, or it's a pre-existing non-conforming situation, and the building inspector can speak to those specific areas for you. But one of the things that is needed is we need some more information as to the outdoor lighting, particularly in relation to the new area that you're creating, as well as a programmatic description of how that outdoor area would be used.
This was, okay, so I have a drawing, we can talk about that now if you like, if that affects the zoning board. Lighting does? You guys handle lighting? Is that why?
It's under the special permit, yes.
Sure, great. So. So if you can see, and this isn't in your drawing, it should be in your drawing packet though. But essentially what it is we have very, very soft lighting facing down, similar to a theater embedded in the steps. And that's really it. The existing sconces are there, will remain. So lighting is very dim. It's not going to be a bright stadium in any sort of capacity. It's more for safety, security, and the foot candles will be reflective of conversation and this sort of thing. It's not going to be bright or concert-like.
Okay. So I think then, you were going to say something here.
No, I think it's up, whether the planning director believes it's appropriate for referral now, I guess is the question. So
I think it would be helpful when it is referred to have a description of the use of the area, and tonight you explained why you're doing this, the failing situation that's out there now. I think it's important to document that in a narrative, so that when this does get referred to the planning board and the architectural review board, they have an understanding as to what has instigated the work that you're doing. Because from what you presented tonight, it makes perfect sense. But unfortunately, your application just looks like an application to do work, and there's no description of the work that you want to do and the reasons you're doing it. And that will also be incorporated into your special permit approval, because you're seeking an amendment of an existing permit, and there's logical reasoning why. So to have that information submitted prior to their referral, I think, is important.
Okay. So we
have an engineer's...
I'm sorry. If you're going to speak, could I ask you come forward, introduce yourself, please?
We do have an engineer's report on the failing system we could produce. We could get to you.
Yeah, I'm sure you have everything already written the way you need to be. It just should be submitted as part of the application so that when we refer it, we have that information to refer.
So we'll hold this matter over until next month?
I don't
or-
think you
No.
you can refer it if you wish upon submission of, that we would actually facilitate the submission and do the referral when that information is received, unless the building inspector has anything to add.
No, like, as she said, most of it's pre-existing. The building was sealed back in 1969, so it was built under like 1954 zoning. So there's no other problems that I can see.
So rather than hold them up, we should make a referral contingent upon their submission being completed.
Correct.
Is that okay with
Yeah,
everyone?
I would think so.
Sure.
So I'll make that motion, that we refer to the planning and the ARB contingent upon their submitting the required information beforehand. Just to save you from coming back another time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
and you can adjourn the public hearing, or motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I move that we adjourn the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Weiss?
Good evening. I'm Mary Scott, the architect. This is Ken Zadek, the co-owner with Lisa Weiss of our property. We are here tonight to seek two variances, a front yard variance and a side yard variance. Ken and Lisa have a daughter who is starting to drive, and they want to get a third car, and they would like to have a 3-car garage. The existing house has a 2-car garage. Pass this down. Which is semi-adequate for 2 cars as it stands, and so the wish would be to have a third bay and also to make it a little more attractive in terms of stepping it back. In order to do this, we require a front yard setback of 2 feet. We'd like it to be 58 feet, which actually conforms to the existing front of the house, which 60 is required, so that's a 2-foot setback variance. And then on the side, we propose a 32-foot setback instead of 35 in order to have enough backup space and space within the garage itself to allow for a small mudroom. And we think the design conforms with the house and with the neighborhood. There's existing screening on the side yard, and we don't think there's any negative effect of this project.
Mary?
Did I screw up my numbers?
I'm not going to say a thing. I'm going to just give you this. And I'm going to give a copy to our secretary for correction. No, no, you're good. Take it with you. You don't want it?
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this
My math
application?
teacher.
No.
Both pages. 2 pages.
Questions or comments from the board?
No, it's pretty cut and dry.
So it's a 2-foot and a 3-foot variance.
Right.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the application made by Lisa Weiss, 123 DeVoe Road, for let's see, what is it? You said 5-foot front?
It's a 2-foot front
2-foot
yard
front.
and a
Front.
3-foot side yard.
3-foot side yard variance for the alteration and renovation of a garage on the premises located at 605 Millwood Road, located at 123 DeVoe Road, for the following reasons. The applicant's needs for a larger garage can only be met by the enlargement of the garage in the way the applicant requests. It's being done in a manner that is minimal to the setback intrusions as possible. We asked neighbors if they had comments.
Yes, there were none.
No neighbors have appeared or written in opposition. The granting of the requested variance will not create an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. No other feasible method appears to be available to the applicant which is likely to achieve the benefit that's being sought. The requested variances are not substantial, and the proposed variances will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district. For these reasons, I move that we approve the application. You need a
Foundation survey and final.
foundation and final survey. 6 months to start, a year to complete.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Have your variance.
Thank you.
Stocker Shapiro.
You look surprised.
I thought we were much further down the docket, but I'm ready to go.
We're moving right along here.
Okay, I'm Sarah Stocker Shapiro. I live just across the street at 23 Smith Street. I am here tonight to make a request for a story height variance to legalize the 3rd floor of our home. Our application was prepared by and includes a note from our architect, Tim Lenner. Tim Lenner is our architect because we are planning an extension on our home. The space in question is a finished space that existed when we bought the home almost 5 years ago. We've been using it as a playroom for our children, but with the expansion we have planned, we see an opportunity to make it safer and also legal. And to achieve this, we're planning on adding sprinklers to this space and also to the path of egress as part of the extension and renovation.
Tim usually doesn't allow his clients to present for him.
Tim is in Delray Beach.
Oh, okay.
You were going to sprinkle the 3rd floor and the access, but not the rest of the house?
We are required to sprinkle the rest of the house.
So you're going to sprinkle the entire residence?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And we already have an engineer who has drawn up plans.
Okay.
So the house was constructed in what year?
I believe 1913.
13. And when constructed, it was as we see it today.
I know that the house has been added on to over the years.
The height.
I don't have any record. The town has no record of the 3rd floor being.
Okay, so the height is considered.
The height is considerably there. Was there. I don't believe it went up.
Pre-existing, whatever.
Yeah, just not the finish.
Just not finished.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? No. Any other questions by the board? I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that the application of Sarah Stocker and Brian Shapiro for the legalization of a third-floor living space in their house at 23 Smith Street be approved for the following reasons. The Stocker Shapiros bought this house with the renovations already in place, and it is not their fault it is there, although they enjoy the use of it. The granting of the variance will not create an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. It has been there for many years without any adverse effect to the neighborhood. There is no other feasible method for them to achieve the desired end other than us giving them their variance. They will be sprinkling the entire, fire sprinkling the entire house in conjunction with the approval, if we approve this variance, which would be a very great benefit to the neighborhood, the fire department, and the residents of the house. There will be no adverse effect to the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And this may or may not be called a self-created hardship. I don't know how we would deal with that since they bought it already there. But I guess technically they could have taken it out if they knew it was illegal. But in that case, it is self-created, but the benefit to the applicant will far outweigh any detriment to the town or the neighborhood, and it should not be taken into consideration. And for those reasons, I think we should grant contingent of, what are we going to do about this? Just the sprinkler system, do you want to put a time limit on that? Or
They have a building
how are we gonna
permit.
handle
There's a
that?
building permit.
They have a building
out,
permit
so
on
it'll be
that?
part of the building
Okay,
permit.
contingent on the building permit being satisfied and the CO obtained for your sprinkler work. Okay.
I second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Have your variance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I lost my agenda. Here it is.
Sunshine.
Yeah, that's why I did so good.
Sunshine.
Sunshine Children's Home. Which one to pick?
Eric, you're going to wait? You want to wait, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
We waiting for something?
No, I
I'm
was
sorry.
asking a question. I'm
Apologize, I
sorry.
didn't understand. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Weingarten. I am a partner in the law firm of Del Bello, Donnell, and Weingarten, Wiesen, and Weeketer, and it is my pleasure to be here this evening representing the Sunshine Children's Home and Rehab Center in connection with its request for an amendment to the site development plan associated with the previously approved special exception use permit, which permits an expansion to the existing children's nursing home on the property located at 15 Spring Valley Road, P.O. Box Ossining, Town of Newcastle, New York. The application for the special exception use permit approval was submitted to your board on October 19, 2017, following certain modifications to the plan, which were made in response to comments received during the planning board's review of the steep slopes permit, wetlands permit, tree removal permit, and stormwater permit applications. Those permits were conditionally granted by the planning board on September 28, 2017. We've been before you for a long time. I will skip the introduction of the Sunshine Children's Home. I know that you're very familiar with it. I do have Linda Masiello, the administrator, here with me, and you will hear shortly from Michael Youngins, our engineer from Kimley Horn. Just very briefly again on the history to recall, so for your memory, the CON was approved by the state in August of 2014. September 28th, 2016, your board as lead agency adopted a negative declaration of environmental significance, ending the environmental review process for the project. That same evening, your board also granted the special exception use permit and 2 area variances. And as mentioned on a year later, October 17, 2017, the planning board granted conditionally the steep slopes, wetlands, tree removal, and stormwater pollution permits. However, in granting the 4 permits, the planning board recommended the reconfiguration and relocation of the proposed building expansion away from the northwest property line adjacent to the town of Ossining Cedar Lane Park and a private residential neighbor's parcel. These changes were made in part in response to comments and a presentation that was made by the immediate neighbor and her professionals. The planning board also recommended shifting the proposed parking area and detention basin further away from the northeast property line. We'll show you that in a moment in plan. The proposed amended plan reduces the impacts of the approved project by relocating the one-story classroom space in the northwest corner of the building addition to the southern edge of the building, which results in a minor but 3,476 square foot reduction in the expanded building. In addition, the addition results in the following. It increases the setback from the western property line 25 additional feet from 61 to 86 feet. It reduces the maximum height of the retaining wall from 22 to 10 feet. The proposed amendment also increases the distance of the nearest parking from the eastern property line by 59 feet, 267 from 320 to 326 feet setback. The additional space has been created for more trees to be added, and 54 trees have been preserved from the original plan. The project disturbance has been reduced by almost a half acre, 8.86 acres reduced to 8.39, and we have also reduced the steep slopes disturbance by 0.5 acres, approximately 3.62 to 3.10. In sum, the project continues to suit the needs of the applicant and is consistent with the CON granted by New York State. Now that the two variances were approved by your board, this proposal is fully conforming. The reconfiguration of the building either leaves the potential environmental impacts the same or decreases them. At this time, I can turn it over to Michael to go show you the plan and show you exactly where all these reductions occur and what the amended plan looks like. I also have information, though I will say this, I have information, there was a lot of things that happened, we were pulled off the agenda having to do with the wells and the water. We do not believe that's relevant to this application. I do have information on it. It's your board's pleasure. If you want me to give you information on that, I'm happy to do it. We don't believe it's necessary, but I do want to make that offer to the board if you're interested in that information.
We'll hold on that.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Michael at this time. Thank you.
Good evening. What I'm going to go through are actually the figures that were...
Sorry, can we start with your name, please?
Oh, pardon me. Mike Youngins. I'm from Kimley Horn in White Plains. I'm the site engineer for the project.
Okay.
I'm just going to go through the figures. These figures are actually included in the memo that we submitted to the board to clarify what the changes in the application are. Just a series of changes. The first one shows the previous building that was proposed in red and the revised building shown in black. The change of significance that occurred was there used to be a classroom pod on the back of the building. This classroom pod has been moved around the corner to this location here. That resulted in some reconfiguration of the footprint. As you can see, there's some differences here where it meets the existing building. The leading edge here at the edge of the building at the west and north side is essentially the same as it was. The result actually for the footprint is a slight reduction of about 2 square feet, but the more significant thing is what was a significant increase in the setback from Cedar Lane Park from 61 to 86 feet in the proposed condition, an increase of 25 feet. Additionally, there was a revision to the parking. The parking in the previous application in red here was closer to the adjacent property line. We slid the parking lot to the left and also the detention basin to the right of that, which resulted in an increase of an offset of 59 feet from the northeastern properties. A lot of other benefits occurred as a result of this was we reduced the retaining wall. Here is a drop off into Cedar Lane Park from this point down. By pulling this retaining wall from this location here back along the building here, we reduced that required retaining wall from 22 to 10 feet. And we're able to significantly reduce the disturbance of the area adjacent to Cedar Lane Park and the dog park right over here. If we tabulate the numbers and we look first at the steep slope, this shows a little hard to make out, but this green line here is the building that's proposed, and this green line is the parking and the other proposed improvements. The areas in red are areas that were removed from the disturbance as part of this change. The first area here against Cedar Lane Park was an area of about a little over 0.3 acres that we removed from disturbance, and it's a kind of a steep drop-off which significantly reduced our steep slopes. The darker the color, the more steep the slope. So as you can see, we have a large area of steep slope here with a lighter area of steep slope around it. That's all been removed from the calculation. In addition, when we did this design, we looked at the rest of the site and we looked for opportunities to be able to reduce other areas by doing some regrading, some adjustments to the site. You can see these other red areas here where we did regrading and adjustments to the layout to actually leave them natural and undisturbed, additionally reducing our steep slope impact. As a result, this proposed change reduces the steep slope impact just over ½ an acre. Also with the trees. As with the previous figure, the red shows the areas where we have removed disturbance that was disturbed in the previous application. As a result, 54 fewer trees need to be removed, mature existing trees, as part of this application. If you count up all the trees in these areas, we get 56 trees that are going to remain, significantly reducing not only the need for replacement, but also leaving the mature trees against Cedar Lane Park and the dog park. Next, we look at through the review with the planning board. There was a lot of emphasis on providing trees wherever possible. We did a site walk. We looked at different opportunities, and also the changes to the plan allowed us to add even more trees. By shifting this parking lot to the left, away from the property, allowed us to provide more buffer trees on the northern side of the property here. Also, by removing the school pod and moving it around the corner, allowed us to do more infill plantings on the slope down to the dog park. And we provided actually some evergreen plantings on the end to provide an excellent four-season screen for the park on that side of the site. Also, there was a concern that due to a lot of clearing that's occurred on Spring Valley Road due to the electrical lines, we also took a walk and it became apparent that some infill plantings along Spring Valley Road would also be beneficial, so we've also added those to the plan.
What are they buffering?
It's just to add a better streetscape approach because there isn't a lot of mature trees in this area right now. So we've added additional shade trees with ground plantings to give
It's more
greenery.
cosmetic than it's not serving a specific purpose.
Well, it is cosmetic, but it actually significantly reduces the amount of trees that we end up putting in the tree bank. As a result of being able to plant additional trees on site, our tree bank contribution went down from 346 to 89. So all these changes got us 257 additional trees on site.
Chairman, if I could also add, the plantings next to Spring Valley Road are part of the wetland buffer area, so it's actually an enhancement to the structural diversity of the wetland buffer.
Next, we're just taking a little more focused look here at the parking area. Another requested change is the parking area just up from the Memorial Pond and just to the right of the proposed expansion had been just an area of parking, paving for the entire thing. We took another look at it and were able to do a perimeter parking scheme which preserved the same number of parking spaces and we were able to free up an area in the middle that we were able to plant. This again additionally helped to offset the number of trees, and we considerably reduced the amount of pavement on site.
With regard to that planter in the parking area, there were some comments from some of the neighbors that that's going to adversely affect the fire department's access to the property. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, sure I can, actually. It shouldn't affect the fire department access at all. The access has been designed all the way around the building. We have a grass paver roadway. Any fire trucks entering the site will actually go all the way around in either a clockwise or counterclockwise manner. This change to the parking area does not affect their access to the building at all.
Thank you for putting that in the record.
Sure. And that's all I have.
Okay. Do we want to hear from Steve?
Well, let me, so at the last meeting when we were here, the board distributed the intent to be lead agency. At this point, we have received responses from what we believe are all the lead agencies. The 30 days have not passed. We don't believe any further responses are coming. However, if there's no final action, the board can still proceed, and then assuming the 30 days has passed without any objections from any other involved agencies, the board could take action after that 30-day period. But it doesn't prevent the board from going ahead tonight with the public hearing with respect to the amended special permit and the modification of the site plan that has been discussed tonight. So the public hearing tonight is required under the special use permit requirements. The board also, assuming that once lead agency is finalized, will need to make another determination, as we had advised the board previously, because there was a prior negative declaration issued with respect to the prior action. This is considered a new action, and the board needs to make a further determination with respect to SECRA, and that is based upon whether the modifications that are presented will have any significant adverse environmental impacts. It's not a review of the entire project, as we have advised you previously. The board should also consider whether these modifications have any impact on any of the general or special use permit conditions. That'll have to be, that permit will have to also be issued with respect to this application. So tonight, you're free to proceed with the public hearing and hear comment limited on those issues. For the public's information, there are several Article 78 proceedings that are still pending involving the prior approvals that address many underlying issues, and the board really should not be re-examining those issues that are the subject of that litigation. If you have any questions for me with respect to procedure, I'm happy to answer them. And then I believe Mr. Coleman does have some responses with respect to one of the issues regarding the tree removal.
Anything yeah, okay. Steve, would you like to?
Sure. As the applicant's engineer went through the changes, we worked very closely through the planning board process with looking at how to reduce impacts, and I think they've done a very good job of working to be sensitive to that. I mean, reducing the steep slopes by 1/2 an acre is pretty significant, especially when we're dealing with the very steep slope section of the property. The added benefit of saving 54 trees preserves a lot of habitat value. A lot of these trees are nut-producing trees, which are beneficial for resident wildlife species that use the area. The applicant was also very willing to add additional trees and landscaping, and so we were able to get a much better buffer screening on the northwestern and the northeastern sides of the property, where neighbors had expressed concern for potential visual impact. And also with the enhancements, with the additional plantings to the wetland buffer, will improve the filtering capability of any nutrients that may run from the site. And in addition, which I don't think Michael mentioned, but the stormwater plan has been also amended, and includes an additional sand filter, which will help with containing runoff and treating and improving overall water quality, from the site. So those are the benefits that we see from from the previous plan. And, my recommendation is that it really reduces, significantly some of the impacts, and it really, is in the direction that we like to see, for an applicant to do. There were some comments on the, that we did receive about the concern whether the trees in the northwest corner, when they modified the retaining wall area, there's an estimate of, I think, 37 trees in that area. I looked at the plans. I mean, it's difficult with the 11 by 17 that was circulated to really see where the tree locations are in relation to the road and the retaining wall. What we did put as a criteria is that during the planning process, before anything is really laid out, is we would identify each of those trees to make sure that they can be protected adequately during the construction phase. But based on looking at the larger plans, from what I can tell, the trees they appear to be far enough away so that they should be protected during the construction process.
Is there anything in your estimation that remains open or unaddressed?
No, I think it's been a pretty thorough process, and I feel confident that they're consistent with all our codes. It satisfies the criteria in wetlands, trees, steep slopes, and stormwater. And I think they've done everything that we would typically ask of any project.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments for Steve?
No.
No? Okay.
Any comments from
Are we ready to?
Yep.
Okay.
If you're ready to go to the public.
At this point, we would like to hear from the public. If you would come forward, please state your name.
Good evening. Mark Shurtak from Saab, Paget, and Roselle. As you know, we represent Jeffrey and Cynthia Manicherian. We have some comments on the recent application. We obviously have not had a chance to study the 2 letters that were posted this afternoon, and we will have further comments on those letters when we can have them assessed by our consultants as well. In addition, I would note that I think this is why the hearing has to be held open for at least one session, because other involved agencies who agreed that you should be lead agency have not had the chance to comment on those letters. They were just asked whether they agreed that you should be lead agency, not to comment on the application on the substantive matter. So they need an opportunity to
I'm sorry,
comment
before
as
you go
well.
on. Is that right?
What 2 letters?
The information was sent to all of the involved agencies with the information that was submitted to this board. At the time that somebody receives that information, the agency receives the information, they typically review the application to identify any preliminary concerns that they may have, and they state their concern, whether or not they agree with the lead agency determination.
Right.
But like the DEC has gone through a litany of things that they think have fall within the correct parameters.
Correct.
Or have been addressed, or whatever the case may be.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Keep going. please.
Okay. We don't fully concur because lead agencies haven't had a chance to, for example, review that letter that was just got. There are 2 letters that were just posted today. Okay. There were a couple of things that were just said. I believe there was a comment that the parking lot, the revised parking lot, would not affect emergency access of the fire department. I believe it was stated that's because the fire engines can circumvent it on grass medians. I have doubts that fire engines can use grass medians. They are very heavy. They need to be supported usually by concrete. So we have not seen any review or comments by the fire department for some time, including on this application. And while you may be able to, it may be environmentally preferable to have pavers, I don't believe pavers can support heavy fire engines. So basically, you would have no access if the way it was described, and the parking lot may not allow access because of no turning radius study, at least that we've seen has been submitted. So you have some emergency access issues that, to our understanding, from what's been made available, has not been addressed.
Okay,
Second-
hold on.
Sorry.
On that point, does anyone here representing the town have any perspective on this particular subject?
We would always require that they meet the fire access road. You know, the state of New York code has parameters for what needs to be for how much the road has to be able to hold. I think it's 28,000 pounds, something like that. So they would have to prove that they can meet that.
And I'm not arguing with that. That should be addressed, I think. I'm sorry, give me a second, Mark. That should be addressed as part of the application, and should be a writing to that effect.
Okay, yes, if you could, yes.
Just Mark Weingarten again, just to point out, the original application approved the use of those pavers. They were done in connection with and in response to, and they were modified with respect to is it Millwood Fire Department comments, and were done. It's the exact same treatment that was used from the first application that you previously approved.
Okay.
I think it still has to be demonstrated that they meet the requirements of the state code, and that has not been addressed. The second comment was that it appeared to Mr. Coleman, as best he could tell from the diagram, that the trees that were near the retaining wall, or indeed as best we can tell from that same drawing, that there are trees basically on the retaining wall, that they would be fully protected, and that would be a condition imposed. However, once again, you should not be saying, we're going to impose conditions in the future. You need to assess the impacts now. And there should be a large drawing showing exactly where those trees are and whether indeed they can be protected. There's going to be a 10-foot retaining wall. There's going to be construction near that retaining wall. Trees tend not to do well in the midst of construction projects, and that has not been assessed, because Mr. Coleman's acknowledged that really you can't tell from what the applicant has submitted exactly where those trees are and how they will be impacted. And that's another aspect of this application that's not been addressed. The application seemed to indicate, while there's a nominal decrease in building size, less than 3%, which is not exactly significant, however, the application talks about a construction period of 13 months. My recollection is that the prior period was 24 months. Well, that's a 45% reduction in the time of construction. My math tells me in order to do construction of basically the same amount in a shorter period of time, you have a lot more construction going on. You have perhaps longer hours. So there's additional noise impacts of this that I haven't seen addressed anywhere in the record to date about the construction period and the hours of construction. So that appears to be another gap that has not been addressed.
Okay, one second, please. Do you happen to know if that's factual?
As far as we know, there's been no change in the construction schedule that we're aware of. It's still 24 months.
Okay, please proceed.
Well, then if it's not 13 months, let's make sure of that, but it appears in documents to be 13 months.
Could you tell us exactly where in the document you're referring?
I don't have that with me, but I'll be glad to provide it to the board in writing.
Okay.
Okay. The tree plan here also implicates the monitoring plan for groundwater. The new trees require additional water, certainly for the first 10 weeks under studies done by the University of Colorado for small new trees. They have a certain amount of water they need, for not only for the first 10 weeks, a decreased amount, but still a lot more water for the next 2 years. None of that appears to be taken into account in terms of the groundwater monitoring plan, which is significantly flawed, and we can address that in a moment. But that is also not part of this application and has not been addressed. I would say that basically each tree needs 180 gallons per day for the first 10 weeks, and then about 18 and a half gallons a day for 2 years. So you have a lot of extra water that's being used for the trees. We're not objecting to trees, obviously, but this is an impact that has to be addressed because it relates to the flawed groundwater monitoring program. In terms of the groundwater monitoring program, I would note that the same consultants who advised the applicant here have proposed a groundwater monitoring plan for the Hudson Ridge Wellness Center. And if you look at a map of concentric overlap of the 1,500 and 2,500-foot distance from this facility and from the wellness facility, you will see a significant overlap. That means there will be cumulative impacts on the groundwater supply in those overlapping areas. That is an impact that has not been addressed and is required to be addressed under seeker. Now, I know the response will be, the groundwater plan is part of the original application and was approved. However, there's new information requires this agency, as a seeker lead agency, to consider new information. And clearly, this is relevant to the groundwater monitoring plan.
I'm sorry, what is the new information?
The new information is that the wellness center, the applicant there has proposed a groundwater monitoring plan.
Is that an application that's been made at what point during this application?
It's pending now, and there's been a recent proposal. Okay, and the application provides the most recent proposal by Leggett Brashears, or I guess it's now WPS, that you have a groundwater monitoring plan. So if you take the same 1,500 and 2,500-foot radius that have been proposed for this plan and overlay them on the wellness center, you will have a major overlapping area. So you'll have potentially double the impact, and maybe more depending on the wellness center uses. And that has not been addressed at all. Now, there are a number of problems with the groundwater monitoring study, including how it's been conducted now. I'd be glad to go into that now. I'm not sure you want to hear that now, but we do want to know, is there going to be an opportunity for the public to comment on the plan and what's transpired to date?
That's why we're here tonight.
Okay, that's fine. Give me a second.
Okay. While you're gathering your notes, maybe there's someone else we might want to hear from? Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to any of these issues? It's okay. Yes? Yes? Oh, okay.
I continue, okay. Well, it may be helpful. Mr. Weingarten said he had an update on that subject. Did I hear you correctly before about the efforts to deepen well number 1?
Hold on. We're not addressing let's get to the other points that you want to speak to.
Well, my points relate to the groundwater monitoring plan. Number 1, that in terms of the deepening of the well, that is designed to allow more water to be used to address the radium and dilute the radium from well 3.
The radium is not an issue we're going to address here tonight. That's a Department of Health issue. And so we're not going to bring that issue up here this evening.
Well,
Okay.
that's what I asked before, whether you wanted to hear, what I asked is whether there'll be an opportunity for the public to comment on that, because I do not believe it's solely a Department of Health issue. This agency is a lead agency under seeker, and those type of impacts are under its authority and its ambit.
I promise you I will address that before the
Okay,
evening's over.
that's fair enough. All I'm saying is that there should be an opportunity to comment on that.
Okay.
If you don't want to hear it tonight,
Fine.
that makes sense. I
Okay,
understand
yes,
that.
Okay.
Okay. So I think basically there are a number of impacts that have not been addressed, and we can clarify that in writing over the next several weeks, so there's not any further delay beyond an additional hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, did you want to be heard? Hi.
I'm Gail Markels. I'm a resident of Newcastle. And I would suggest to the zoning board that as a lead agency, that a number of new facts and issues have come up that have been presented, and I think the zoning board should look at and consider. One is that the issue of radium in the wells. The Sunshine Home open well number 3.
I'm going to just stop you there. I don't mean to be disrespectful. We're not going to address radium here this evening, okay? That's a Department of Health issue, and we will hear on that issue.
I understand that it's a Department of Health issue in part, but in part one of the arguments the Sunshine Home has made, and perhaps that the zoning board has accepted, is that there is a sufficient amount of water present. And if there was a sufficient amount of water present in the current wells, why did the Sunshine Home open well number 3 and subject the children and staff to radium-contaminated water? If there wasn't sufficient water for current use, How could there be sufficient water for the expanded use? And that's an issue that I think requires the board to consider.
What's your next point?
Well, and one of the other things that goes along with that is, as a resident of Newcastle, what happens if the residents of, the neighbors are correct and there is not sufficient water and they run out of water? Who's going to pay for them to get water trucked to their homes? Is it going to be me, the town, the taxpayers? If the Sunshine Home is so convinced that there is sufficient water present, why doesn't the Sunshine Home indemnify the town of Newcastle and the residents in the event that the neighbors run out of water and litigate? Why should residents like such as myself be subject to that kind of penalty?
I understand the point. Okay.
One of the other questions I have is regarding fire safety. The fire department did look at the older plan, but a new plan's been drawn. What is the access? How do we protect the children? If, the concern is with the safety and the health of the children, I would urge the town to require a new safety plan before the plan is admitted. And again, one of the concern is, as a resident, I've seen my neighbors take down trees and do things without getting the approval of the zoning board, and they get hammered. They get penalized, they get fined, and their permits are pulled. But here, as a resident, I've seen the Sunshine Home go on Thanksgiving when they think nobody is looking and take all of these steps and nothing is done. As a resident, it really sends the wrong message to my neighbors. I follow the rules.
Okay.
I don't do work on my home unless I get a permit, but the Sunshine Home is allowed to overstep time and time again with no punishment.
Okay.
And that's a terrible message.
Both the county and the town were involved in that issue, and it's been addressed, okay?
Mr. Chairman?
I would argue that it's not been addressed sufficiently.
When we're notified of somebody doing something, taking down a tree or removing a shed, something like that, we're looking for compliance, not to give them a ticket. So we go out, we talk to the people first. A ticket is the last step. A lot of times we work with people for 6 months prior to giving a ticket. So that is not accurate. We do not go and hammer people.
I think there are dozens of residents that would differ, it's regarding how they're treated. I'd also say that regarding one of the letters that was sent, that was sent today or posted today, regarding the monitoring of the wells, it's the Sunshine Home, is suggesting that their vendor does it. I would suggest that's not sufficient, that's not adequate, and that it's a terrible conflict of interest, and that an outside vendor hired by the town should do that. It's sort of like asking the NRA to draft gun legislation. It's not correct, and it does, the outcome would be subject. I would just ask the zoning board to take the jurisdiction it has and to protect the residents of the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Browdy. I'm a resident here in Newcastle. I join in Ms. Markell's comments. I would, in particular, surprised that this town, having acted in the Unification Church case to pull a permit when the Unification Church acted in violation of permits, granted the Sunshine Home an entirely different approach and ignored the violations, worked with them, and the violations occurred. Each of the concerns that have been expressed before, I will not repeat. You've heard them, and I trust that exercising your responsibility.
Remember, they're a matter of record now, so there's no reason for you to have to repeat them.
Well, I think there probably is, but I will defer to you and trust that you and the board will respond to them adequately. But I think that to date, the response has not been adequate. That the response to the violations that are acknowledged to have occurred has been entirely inadequate. And I recognize that you are not the enforcement agents here. Mr. Polcari and his crew are. But when you are looking at modifications in the past, you have taken steps that were prudent. I am surprised that in this case you are not. I would urge you to reconsider. This is a developer that has acted in violation of permits. And that's something that no one else gets away with. But here, I would urge you I would urge you to hold them to the same standard that everyone else is. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just with respect to the actions taken by the building department, as soon as the work was raised, which was right around the November ZBA meeting, the building department did take action. The work was stopped voluntarily by the applicant. There were requirements with respect to multiple permits being issued to remedy it, which, as Mr. Polcari has stated, is the general course taken by the building department rather than going straight to violations. There were multiple permits with multiple requirements issued. There were a number of submissions that had to be made by the applicant to address those issues. And then on January 16th, 2018, you had a very detailed memorandum from the building department, building inspector, noting what was required, what was the result and the findings with respect to the issuance of those permits, including a review by the town's consultant with respect to whether that had any impact concerning the present application or the prior application or this application. And that finding is set forth as an attachment to the January 16th memo. So I just want to make that clear for the board.
If I may respond to council?
Sure.
To council's comments? The fact that it required multiple permits issued retroactively should be sufficient to warn this board and to put the board on notice of the inappropriate actions taken. The response to other inappropriate actions was to pull permits. In this case, they were simply retroactively granted permits. I don't think that people of this town get that. I don't think they should get that. I think that the law should be applied equally to all, not selectively granting retroactive permits, multiple retroactive permits to a violator.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. Again, if we gave a ticket, it would have came to court. They would have applied for permits. The judge would have said, thank you for applying for permits. I think that's what one of the things this town likes, is that we don't try to gain money from people for getting doing something wrong. We try just to get compliance. If they voluntarily give compliance, it saves the town a lot of time. If they don't, then yes, we have to bring them to court. But once they voluntarily do it, the court point is kind of mute.
Okay. Yes.
I think the issue is not solely voluntary compliance. The issue is that this applicant has numerous years of violations of its prior special permit, of the going out and doing this work over Thanksgiving weekend.
Is that a matter of record?
Yes.
Okay.
And that if you look at what this applicant has said to you about the radium in the wells, it has told this board that it has disconnected well 3 in several different occasions, and it has told the DOH the precise opposite. So this applicant has a track record that this board should be considering, and it should revoke the permit from those prior misrepresentations and violations of law. The fact that there wasn't a ticket issued does not mean it was not a violation of law.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes. I'm just going to ask you, we've covered, a good deal of subject matter here so far. So I would hope that you would be addressing your comments to the modifications made on this matter. And it isn't necessary, again, to cover material that some of your other neighbors have already covered. Okay?
Yes. Oh, sorry. So few of you speak into the mic. I overcompensate. I apologize. Yes and no. I'm a member of the public. This is a public hearing, and I'm going to voice my opinion. I have been living here for it will be 25 years. I've been a taxpayer to the town of Ossining for 25 years this November. During the course of that time, every year, I purchase the equivalent of a small American-made economy car, base model, no extras, but that's what I pay in taxes. That is a fortune. That is a fortune.
I'm sorry, could I ask that you get to
I'm
your-
going to wrap it up. Look,
No, I'm not
okay,
an-
okay.
no, I'm
Is this
not-
the Oscars all of a sudden? You guys going to play me out?
No,
Please,
I'm not
give me my time. I've respected everyone else, and I've respected you guys.
I didn't say you didn't. I'm not asking you to wrap it up. I'm just saying if you could make your point, that's what we want to hear.
If you allowed me to speak and we didn't have this back and forth, I'd probably be at my point already.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Now you've totally derailed my train of thought, so we're going to have to wait for me to get back onto it now. I'm so sorry. If anyone else wants to jump in, you know, I was on a roll, sir. I was on a roll.
Take a
Thank
moment.
you.
Take a moment.
I'm going to take a moment.
Okay.
Can you also state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I did. Violet Benny. You're welcome. I'm going to Rubio with my moment. Excuse me. Okay. As I was saying, I've lived here and paid a fortune in taxes for almost 25 years. I don't make any problems. I don't even pay attention to these meetings, but now I've been forced to, because now I'm learning that the amount of money I pay to live in a bucolic, beautiful setting is now going to be homing a property the size of a Walmart. Now, I'm happy that they've made some adjustments and they've made it smaller, but to me, this entity, the Sunshine Home, represents, you give them an inch, they take a mile to the nines. It started out as a small home. I believe, if I'm correct, at one point it was a drug rehabilitation facility that housed Nancy Spungen, a famous Tin and Nancy. Then the Sunshine Home moved in, and I noticed shortly after the Sunshine Home moved in, and I didn't put the two together, I was unaware that the Sunshine Home was in there, the wetlands disappeared. There was a wetlands there. I lived here. I saw it. It was a beautiful piece of property on Cedar Lane. That's dried up after this expansion. Curious, isn't that? Now they want to expand again. One variance was plenty. One variance was a blessing. To push it is ridiculous. And I'm sorry if this is taking up people's time and I'm not addressing the circumstances. I am addressing the changes that are going to happen. Is the town of Ossining going to drop my taxes? What is it going to do to my property value? I can't speak to everyone else in this room. I can speak to my life experience. And I was homeless once. It was a long fight to get where I am. And I will not ever be homeless again. And I will not allow the most valuable asset I own to be destroyed. Nor will I allow my planet to be destroyed by people lusting for greed and personal gain. This is not a non-for-profit. This is a corporation that runs in the red. Now stop it. You know, we need to stop this, and we need to not allow this to destroy something that the rest of us work really hard to maintain, our property values. Now I'm finished.
Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Eric, if there's no one else who wishes to speak. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Just a couple of brief ones. There was mention of the issue of the use of water for the trees that have been added to the plan. Firstly, I want to mention, of course, that with all of these things that were mentioned tonight, the reason we view them or we don't view them is whether or not they're implicated by the amendments, because there is a full review that was done of the plan that originally existed. So, for example, when it comes to groundwater monitoring, there is nothing in the amendment which changes anything having to do with water, and therefore we would say that that would be irrelevant. With respect to the trees that have been added, we are, as we have been from the beginning, will be using a contractor who will be bringing off-site water on to water the trees when they are added. That is the process that you use. It's fine to put you a condition. That's the way it would always be expected. So with respect to the new trees that are being added, clearly off-site water can be used to bring them on, et cetera, so it will have no implication with respect to the water issue. I also just want to mention that there was questioning about the lead agency. Two issues. Mr. Chertok raised the issue of the letters that were posted today. The issue of lead agency is an issue that when the application is submitted, it goes out. There's a 30 that you have declared your intention. there's a 30-day process. They don't look at the letters and comments that go on during the public hearing process. They take a look at the submittals that were made and they say, is there anything here that would lead us to believe that we're supposed to be the lead agency? In fact, if you didn't post those letters today and the hearing had been as it would typically be 30 days later, because there's only 28 days in February, those letters would not even have been posted before they would have normally have made the decision. So that's just not part of the normal process. We did take the effort, and I know the town also made the effort, to make sure that all of the interested agencies, they are the Westchester County Department of Health, the New York State Department of Health, and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Every one of them were contacted. They received and reviewed the application. The New York State DEC asked for additional information from the original permit, which was sent on to them. And you've received letters from each and every one of those agencies saying, we are not going to be the lead agency here. That then, whether it's 30 days or not, that process is now over. There is no involved agency that is suggesting that it should be lead agency. We would suggest that it can be, you are absolutely within your right to declare yourself lead agency this evening if you wish to do that. If you want to wait until, if there's going to be, if it's not finishing tonight and it's going on to the next hearing, we have no objection to you doing it then, but I just wanted to state for the record that that's how the process would work. Thank you.
Eric, how do we proceed from here?
So based on the comments you've heard tonight, the board would have to make a determination whether to continue the public hearing if there are issues you believe need to, based on what's been said tonight, whether there are issues that you believe still need to be addressed, or if the board believes that those issues have been addressed based upon the submissions before it, or it can close the public hearing and allow additional written comments. It can close the public hearing, completely. So it's really up to how the board wants to proceed, and then depending on whether you close the public hearing, the next step would be deliberation by the board with respect to the secret issues and the special use permit application modification of the site plan, discussion of those of the issues relating to those those two matters, and then directing the planning department and council to direct resolutions based upon your determinations.
So if we were to close a public hearing tonight and allow there to be written comment until, I just want to ask the question. And if we allow there to be written comment between now and the next meeting.
Right.
Then at the next meeting, we would draw whatever conclusion and ask for resolutions to be drawn at that point in time?
Yes.
Okay. So, go ahead, Michael.
The issue of the violations, is that part of tonight's oversight in any way?
Well, you've heard from the building department. It's been addressed.
Right.
So,
I guess my only thinking in this is that the applicant and the project manager certainly knew that there was a tremendous amount of oversight of this project all along the way. For them to take unilateral action as they did in November, I think it was, it puzzles me about why they would do that. And is it something that we need to be concerned with as the applicant? Are they willing to take unilateral action again?
So,
I think
could we?
You responded to that once before, I
Right.
believe, and you gave a fairly cogent reason.
Yeah, no, I mean, firstly, I just want you to know, there's been an investigation by the town that has been concluded, which we gave all the information on. What was indicated and what was concluded and what our position was from the start was that the work that was done is related to the existing operation. This is not an empty site. It has an existing operation, and we were doing work. They should have had permits. They were doing work in an attempt to fix an existing issue that needs to be fixed, whether we go forward with the expansion or not. And as a matter of fact, as I indicated the last time we were here, your negative declaration requires us to have a filtration plan. So when we go ahead and build the expansion, this radium issue is gone. There will be blending and there will be filtration, and then, which is a better situation than now, and it will be no longer an issue. We were trying to fix this as an interim measure before the filtration plant comes into effect in context of constructing it. That's being designed, that's part of the construction, and that's going to happen. The problem was there was a lack of communication. There should have been a communication. There was, oh, you must be starting your construction now. We weren't. And the investigation went forward, and it was determined that this was part of this issue. Now, just so you know, there is also an opponent. Mr. Chertock's firm has raised a question saying that investigation was wrong. They should not have issued these permits. So we're now going to be appearing before the Environmental Review Board, the ERB, where they're claiming that this is attached to this application as opposed to what I'm saying to you, that it was part of the, it's part of having an existing facility and trying to go forward with that. If that goes in one direction or another, it could change things. But for now, it has been determined by the enforcement agents of this town that what we did was in connection with the existing facility, not related, certainly not related to the amendments before you, and that's why it's not relevant to the discussion and why I didn't address it now and we didn't address it during the hearing. Does that explain it?
Yes, I think that's helpful.
Okay,
Excuse
thank
me.
you.
But yeah, but yes, it does, you do explain it, but it's still, I still just wonder why they didn't get the permits.
They made a mistake, and as we said before this board, and we said before the planning board, and what basically happened was, when it was originally done, they didn't think they needed to take down a tree, and they didn't think they needed to take as much of the shed down that is required. The contractor went on site. It turned out that a tree had fallen. There were all of these things that's in the town's investigation, not our thing, that indicated he should have stopped and should have said, I have to go get a permit. He didn't. We had hired the person to do it. They did not think it was required. Turned out it was. As soon as it was indicated that there was an error here, we stopped. We didn't need a violation notice. We stopped immediately, and we haven't started the work up. We've been sitting for months working with the DOH and making sure that this is all done properly, and working with Mr. Polcari's office and the others in remedying it. It was an error, it was a mistake, it was a terrible error, and probably they should have waited till this whole thing was done, but it was done in a sense that there's an issue there, and they were trying to do their best to remediate it at that point, and they should have waited.
Michael, not to put you on the spot, where do you come out on continuing the public?
Yeah, no, I to me, it's just, I guess I'm just looking at the general character issue, and I just get concerned if an action is taken where, obviously, I think what they're trying to do is a good thing and for the children, so I'm just concerned with making sure that when we're not there overseeing what they're doing all the time, are they doing what we approve them to do? That's my only concern.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, when the town was informed of the violations, we conducted our investigation. Part of the issuance of the permits through Mr. Polcari, there was a host of conditions and requirements to ensure that the town is notified when work is going to be conducted on the site. You know, they have obligations that they must satisfy in order for any additional work to occur on that site, in order for them to pump water on that site from specific wells at this time, because of the sensitivity that is occurring and the balancing that needs to occur for this applicant to address their existing community water supply quality issues. So the town, based on the actions that have been taken, we required them, and they have agreed to, notification procedures to Mr. Polcari when things are going to be conducted on the site. So, and I think that's important for the board to understand at this time.
Okay.
May I say something?
Give me a moment, please. Well, please have a seat. Howard Harvey, how do you come out on the public hearing, its continuance, its closure?
I'm not sure that the public hearing needs to be continued at all. If the board decides to, the majority wants to continue it for written submissions, that's probably okay, because we could review those, and we can't we're not going to do anything tonight, I don't think, so that's probably the best way to move.
Okay.
Excuse me, is the board aware, though, that is the eve of Purim? I know the Sunshine Home can send their legal representatives, but for the Greater Teatown Alliance, if there are members of the Jewish community who are observant, they might not be here tonight, and they might not have been able to voice their opinion. And this is a public hearing.
Thank you. Okay. Howard,
I concur with.
Microphone, please.
I concur with Harvey. I would open it up for written comment.
Okay.
I don't think anything has risen to the point of new information that we would require to keep the public hearing.
okay. Yes.
Gail Markells, resident of Newcastle. I would just say I'm a former prosecutor, and if you allow continued violations with no punishment, it sends a message to the rest of the people in town who, with all due respect to Mr. Paul Carey, do get treated differently. When they violate, they don't get permits, they do work, they get punished, their permits get pulled. I just suggest you're sending a terrible message to the rest of the town, and you're encouraging people to do what the Sunshine Home does, to do work in the middle of the night when they think no one else is going to see. Why did they do it over Thanksgiving? It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. They thought everyone was going to be away. Think about the kind of corporation that does that. If they did it once, have they done it before? Will they do it again? I think we all know the answer. That if you let someone violate the rules with like barely a slap on the hand, they will do it again and again to the public harm. And that will be, and the public will suffer.
I would tell you that I think you're missing one thing, and I'm not saying it relates just to this application or to this application at all, but we are a community, and we are all neighbors. And so the fact that someone at a point makes a mistake by taking down trees or doing something that they're not supposed to do, and that the building department at a point comes to them and says, you made a mistake, and I want you to correct it. I don't think that's a terrible thing for a community, and I don't think it's a terrible thing for the way we should exist together.
It's people are not treated equally. The Sunshine Home is allowed to make misstep after misstep after misstep with no punishment and no recognition. That's the difference. And I think the record shows that. I think if you look to see wetlands being filled in, things disappear. It's not the first time this has happened.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Yes.
Different topic. Cynthia Manicherian, different topic.
Okay, sure.
Cynthia Manicherian, 100 Glendale Road. So today, several documents got posted under Sunshine and ZBA. And so I would request that you keep the public comments open. I appreciate always Sabrina's deep dive, and her memo got put out today, and Steve Coleman's memo got put out today. It takes people a little time to be able to formulate their
I don't
thoughts.
think there's anyone here who disagrees with you.
So, and then more importantly even, because I understand some of these issues have been going on, you know, and you're thinking the memo is the final moment, and 10 days from the public should be enough. But I think it's such a big project that another public meeting would be helpful for the public to get comfortable and everyone as a community to have these conversations. But also today, and written today, a letter from WSP with the well monitoring proposal for how they want to deal with the community. And I think nobody had the time to respond to that. And you should keep it open as a public discussion, because this is about your community and people working together to make sure the best decisions are made. So I would ask you respectfully to keep public comments open till your next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, regarding the well monitoring program, that well monitoring program was a condition of the previous permit. The monitoring program, we received the information today. It is currently being reviewed by the town's hydrogeologist so that we can, as determined through the initial special permit, the town's representative was reviewing the applicant's proposal, reviewing their approach, their protocols, everything regarding that well monitoring program. So just for your information, that is a condition related to the prior permit.
There really is no change from that as a result of this application.
But it's never been a focused topic for public comment, and this is a very, now they've really laid it out, they've formalized it, the form for signature page and so forth. And, you know, the community doesn't
I'm going to
even.
make a prediction.
Yeah.
We're going to allow there to be comment going forward on the subject. Okay?
For which wells get chosen and all of that for the comprehensive dive.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not sure about
For
the
the community.
specifics of it, but we are going to allow there to be comment, is my prediction.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Okay. Yes.
So I guess just off of that, there's going to be public comment.
I'm sorry, if you could
I'm sorry,
introduce yourself.
Ann Martin, 155 Hawks Avenue.
Sure.
There's going to be public comment for the well monitoring? Is that what you're saying?
Again, we
haven't decided yet.
we haven't made a final determination, but
Okay, so
there will be some form of opportunity for people to comment going forward is what is under consideration right now by the board.
So I would just bring up, which I'd mentioned before, they, I think it's WSP, put a deadline out of March 8th, which they pulled out of the air. And I have been kind of apoplectic because I've been emailing everybody, you know, when's the well monitoring? And so they're like, it's not for a while. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And so eventually I kind of pestered everybody. And so they came around. They contacted me. I think they contacted one other person. They put out a deadline of everybody submitting applications by March 8th, which is like 10 days, 9 days from now. Nobody knows about this. They went around and physically put some notices on people's doors, but there's been no public notice made.
I see.
And I'm like, nobody knows about this deadline. You know, I asked, can this deadline be extended? How do you know, when you make public notification for a variance, you have to send certified letters. I spoke to Tom Cusack today because my husband wanted to meet with him, and I did as well. And he said that they're going to select the 6. You know, they get to select the 6 and tell you which 6 they're going to select. The whole process, I understand the town is going to review it, but they're putting out what they want to do. You look at it, we have no input. When I asked what mitigation would happen if it was determined that our well was, you know, reduced, if our groundwater did reduce, I'm like, I'm not even saying that it will, but what's the mitigation? Right. And they're like, well, you know, we'll decide at that point. And I'm like, well, what determines mitigation? Is it 50%? Is it 75%? He's like, well, that's, you know, it's reviewed by us. They get to determine what that bar is for when they step in for mitigation. So my first concern is that deadline was arbitrary on their part. It's way too short. No public notice was made other than Tom Cusack walking around and putting notices on people's front doors. And a lot of the people didn't even get notification. I'm not in contact with everybody, so I don't know who did. So it's kind of a haphazard program, and there's no oversight. And some people probably don't even know yet they're in that 1,500 feet thing, you know, unless they come to these meetings or on Facebook. So that just seems like not official notification. So that's my concern.
I appreciate it. Yep. No, thank
So
you.
that when you say you're going to review it at some point, that deadline is fast approaching. And if we miss it, if some people miss those deadlines because they were totally not made aware, they're then shut out of the well monitoring
Okay.
program.
I appreciate that. Yes, could you?
You want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Under the, I guess I would put it under the category of no good deed goes unpunished. This is something that comes out of the original negative declaration that we did not have to start until construction. In context of discussing this until before construction, we
6
have to
months
have the
prior.
plan prior to, correct, but there's, no one knows when we're starting construction at this point. It could be an awful long time. There's litigation, there's all sorts of things going on. In communication with the town, it was determined that it might be helpful to go out with the plan which you, now again, with all sorts of experts coming in, you adopted a plan as part of your negative deck, and it says this is the plan that you have to follow. So we, in communication with the town, went out now. We could have waited, but we went out now because we thought it would help calm having communication, saying this is how it's going to work. So they went out with a very detailed letter that goes along with what is supposed to be done through the negative declaration. We can tell you right now, very clearly in communication with the town, we will remove any things that people think are unfair with respect to how long people have. We are going out and notifying everyone within that 1,500-foot radius. We're going to their homes. We're doing everything. We're sending letters. They're all going to get them. It's all going to happen. There's going to be a scientific selection within that area as to who it is. And our person's going to make the recommendation, but the town's expert is going to make the final determination, and then the well monitoring will go on. So I just want to make it clear, again, nothing in the amendment before you on this, that's before you tonight, is implicated by that. These letters that were posted, while they are part of this project, are not part of the amendment that's before you. And I just want to make it very clear, could we have waited another few weeks, few months, et cetera? We could have. We were trying to help by doing that. And again, that was in discussions with the town that we did that. That's the reason we did it. Thank you.
So are you able to assuage this woman's concern about March 8th?
Yes, we will remove the March 8th deadline, and we're going to talk to the town about, making sure that everybody receives these notices, and that everybody who wants to try to participate will be permitted the opportunity to participate, and then there will be a selection. So we will communicate again, and through Mr. Kuzak, determine what the appropriate deadline should be.
And one of the concerns that the town has is that there's adequate scientific representation of wells within the scientifically determined radii that need to be monitored in order to make this monitoring effort indicative of whether or not there are any groundwater concerns once the expansion is constructed and drawing it water. So I can tell you that the request to write up the program, submit something to us, have been requested by the town so that we can have our hydrogeologist, who is a consultant to the town, verify that what they're doing is correct protocol from a hydrogeologic basis, that groundwater monitoring is historically a very expensive endeavor. The applicant has committed through their special permit with you to monitor these wells, and and I have to respond, I'm not sure what the applicant had told you, if there is a problem. If there is a problem and their project is drawing down water from your wells, they are required to provide you water to 100% of your water needs based on your well. And this monitoring program is put in place so we can identify whether or not their expansion is impacting surrounding wells. This is a very high-level concern, if you will. We don't expect, and throughout the zoning board's review process, there was never an anticipation that this development will impact surrounding wells. This is an added assurance to demonstrate that it does not, but if in fact it does show that there is a connection and you are losing water to your homes, the applicant is required to cure that situation. It was raised through the environmental review. They have committed to curing your water needs.
So I do have one question.
I'm sorry, could you come to the microphone, please?
So
Thank
when I
you.
was specifically speaking to Tom this afternoon, I'm like, what's the barometer for determining I've been impacted? Is it 20% reduction, 50% reduction, 75% reduction, going dry? Like at what point are you required to give me some kind of mitigation or work with me or assess that, yes, there's been some kind of damage? And he's like, well, that's up to us to determine, him. And I don't like that answer. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be me, certainly, but I'm like, there must be some kind of guidelines for that, and I really don't want it to be them.
The town's geologist is going to review.
Yes, he is
These
overseeing this program.
protocols.
Absolutely. And he will be overseeing the results of the monthly reporting, of the
I have a
weekly
concern.
reporting.
I can discuss this with the hydrogeologist,
You can call me. You can call me, and you can say, "Hey, Sabrina, this is a problem."
It's a town matter, as we view it. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is why I did not comment in detail on this before, and I'm not planning to do so now. I think the devil is in the details. There was I would call it generic, and I don't need to be insulting.
I'll give you that.
Yeah,
I agree.
A plan. So these
Right.
are the details, and that's why I think there needs to be an opportunity for the public to comment at a public meeting on the specifics. Once the town gives its comments, and everybody can see where that plan is. There may be many fewer comments once the town finishes, but we don't know, and that's why I made that comment before.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So, is this a case we're making a motion to
Yes, if you'd make a motion, if you're going to make the motion, either to adjourn the public hearing or to close it and give a certain amount of time for submission of written comments.
Okay.
I think any written comments that come in have to be received by the town at least 10 days before the next meeting, at least, so that there's an adequate amount of time for everyone to review. Each side can review, the town can review. Anything that's received later than 10 days, I think should be disregarded.
Say 10 days from today?
From the next meeting.
Prior to
Before
the
the
next
next
Prior to
meeting.
the next meeting.
Right, and then no further, that's it. There's no responses to any other communications, right?
So I'll make that motion. I move that, excuse me? 19th, okay. I move that the board close the public hearing with the understanding that it will accept written comments up to and including March 19th, at which time the town, the board, the public will review what has been submitted with the intention then of, at the next meeting, coming to some conclusion that will result in us giving direction to council as it relates to draft document for draft resolution for our consideration.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not going anywhere tonight anyways.
The 19th is a holiday. 19th is a holiday.
Don't worry about it.
President's Day. It's a Monday. It's President's Day.
I didn't get any minutes. It says minutes for
Oh, I
for
am
January.
looking at February. Thank
I didn't
you.
see
I'm
any.
like,
Approve the minutes.
Did the minutes go out? I never saw them.
Yeah,
Oh.
they went out.
Oh, yeah, she sent them.
I saw them.
Did I say that I think I did then. I didn't have a comment.
I make a motion that we adopt the meeting minutes for the July 31st, 2018 meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Done.
I think I'd be in February.
We're off.